Hello, and welcome to Unavoidable Reality, a place where we shed light on subjects that most of us would like to avoid or ignore completely. Today, we'll be having a real conversation about domestic violence, previously called wife beating, in the victim paradigm. My name is Evie Zamora, Women's Certified Coach Practitioner and Women's Program Director for Teshuva Outreach. This series will be focusing on women and abuse because that's where I have the most experience and have worked in this area of service the longest. I also realize that it's not popular to talk about things like women's rights because people label you wrongly. But I'd like to start by setting the stage before 1920 and moving forward, so hopefully you'll understand a little bit better about where I'm coming from. You may be unaware that it's only been in the last 100 years that it became illegal to beat your wife, right here in the United States. At that point, if a woman pressed charges and a man was convicted for wife abuse, the man was given the choice of 1 year in prison or 40 lashes. Keep in mind, it was perfectly legal to beat your wife, lock her in a room for misbehavior, and many other things, as long as he didn't kill her or cause, as they said, permanent maiming. So imagine with me that he's convicted and chooses the 1 year in jail. He can't work, so who pays for the house she and the kids live in? There are so many caveats to this scenario that most women did not pursue anything with the court. Women couldn't own property legally at this time, so he could do whatever he wanted with the house, and she had no say. If she was able to take care of her children, and the children, if she was able to take care of herself and the children, and unless she was barren, there were most assuredly children, women were treated like property. Now let's move forward to present day. Statistically speaking, we're averaging losing at least 4 women per day, murdered by a boyfriend, domestic partner, or husband. That's averaging about 1,500 women dying each year from domestic abuse, and that's here in the United States. It's been my experience that the most common question to that answer is, why don't those women just leave? The most dangerous time for a woman in an abusive relationship is after she leaves. And as a side note, what about the children? I can guarantee you that if the mother is in danger, you've got to know that there's probably abuse going on with the kids. And if he kills her, the odds go up drastically that he'll do the same to them. More women and children are murdered in this country by a close family member than any other way. So I have a question. What's it going to take for men to stop beating, raping, demoralizing, and stripping their wives from complete worthlessness? I guess the best question of all is why we need over 3,000 women's shelters and services just in the U.S. and Canada. No one runs to the microphone to answer that question because this problem is never brought up to discuss. No one really believes that it's real, or they always attempt to put the focus on the victim to keep the blame, or what I like to call the responsibility, away from the perpetrator. When it comes to being abused, no matter where you are in your journey, the question is always the same. What do I do now? And more often than not, if you have an emotional support system of friends or family, they may be starting to lose their patience with you, either because you haven't left your abuser yet or you've gone back, and maybe more than once. It's a hard place to be, and there are no easy decisions to make, like most people would believe. Statistically speaking, there are 3 major problems with whatever the victim chooses to do. If they choose to stay, it most assuredly will spiral inward and only get worse. If it's physical, it's going to be emotional too. If it's emotional, It may not be physical abuse yet, but even if it never becomes physical, it's equally damaging. If they choose to leave, I mentioned before that that's when most victims of domestic violence are killed. It's also noteworthy that most homeless women, with or without children, are domestic violence victims. Next week, we're going to dive in a little deeper, and we'll continue addressing the victim side of this question and talk about some of the options to consider, like what to do after you meet or before the relationship develops. What about once you're in, meaning living together, married or not? What about if you suspect that he has anger issues? Maybe there's already been red flags or, quote, accidents that are hard to determine with you or your children. And finally, how much grace does an intimate partner deserve? I'd like to invite you to join in this chat with questions, concerns, and ideas you may have. If you will, go to the contact page on our website, teshuvahOutreach.com, and drop me an email or send me a text on WhatsApp. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're currently in an abusive relationship or a survivor of a past abusive relationship, we have a special private page just for you. I work with several groups and organizations and lots of folks that are involved in Facebook groups. One in particular that I'm thinking of, we have a very special support source for everyone. So please contact me and I'll respond with instructions and a link to get you there. Father, I pray for these women that have to endure this type of pain, and I pray for your mercy. Please soften the hearts of those that are in supportive roles and give them the strength they need. Abba, we also know that your ways are just, and with every decision we make, there are always consequences. Please, Father, spare their lives and mend their hearts with courage and endurance, and equip those of us that serve to walk in your ways, guarding your commands, seeking understanding and hope, and listening without condemnation. In the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Amen. Amen. It's sad to say, but even if you choose to look away, and you yourself or someone in your family or friend are not involved with this problem, in our society, it continues to grow, and victims continue to be marginalized, and perpetrators' accountability continues to be minimized. Thank you for being here tonight. Please check the website for upcoming presentations and events, and if the Father wills, I'll see you next week where we'll pick up right where we left off. Shalom, shalom.